Welcome to the Deep Dive, the place where we sift through the most important knowledge available and give you the actionable, surprising nuggets that truly matter.
Hey there.
Today, we are undertaking, well, a pretty massive deep dive into a modern classic of self-improvement, James Clear's foundational guide, Atomic Habits.
Yeah, this one's huge. And our mission today, it isn't just to give you a summary. We really want to dig in and extract the core philosophy, the complete practical user manual, really, for continuous improvement.
Right. We want to show you exactly how these tiny, seemingly insignificant changes, what Clear calls atomic habits, how they can actually accumulate into these monumental, life-altering results.
And give you the step-by-step framework. That's key. How to make those changes stick, make them permanent.
Okay, but before we even get to the framework, I think we have to start with the author's own story. It's kind of crucial context for understanding why he became so obsessed with these tiny improvements, these marginal gains.
Absolutely. It's quite a story. Clear was this dedicated athlete, a lifelong baseball player, dreamed of going pro, like a lot of kids.
And then, bam, final day of his sophomore year in high school. His whole life trajectory just gets violently altered.
Yeah, it was a shocking freak accident. A baseball bat slipped out of a classmate's hands during warm-ups, hit him square in the face.
Ooh.
The book describes the damage pretty graphically. Crushed nose, like bent into a distorted U-shape, multiple skull fractures, 2 shattered eye sockets.
Wow.
And he ended up in a medically induced coma. It went from, promising athlete 1 minute to literally fighting just to breathe and function the next.
That initial setback,
Yeah.
it meant months of just slow, painful recovery. He had to relearn basic stuff, struggled constantly with double vision, physical exhaustion.
Yeah.
It sounds brutal.
And he went back to baseball, but then he got cut from the varsity team, which for someone whose identity was so wrapped up in being an athlete must have been just a huge blow.
Yeah, devastating.
But this, right here, this is where the Atomic Habits philosophy kind of starts to germinate. Not in some, big Hollywood moment of inspiration, but in these tiny structured steps he started taking.
So instead of aiming for this impossible goal, like, I'm going to dominate right away, he focused on the process, just getting incrementally better.
Exactly that. In the gym, he started with almost ridiculously small weight increments. Academically, he built structured study habits. Every single day was just a conscious decision to be like 1% better than yesterday.
And that steady, almost invisible work, it just accumulated over years.
A decade, yeah. And the results, they really do speak for themselves. 10 years later, he wasn't just recovered, he was thriving.
He was named the top male athlete at Denison University, got selected for the ESPN Academic All-America team, which is a huge deal, right? Like only 33 players nationwide.
Almost all divisions, yeah. Super prestigious. And then he transitioned that same discipline into becoming this globally recognized expert on habits, launched the Habits Academy, wrote this book we're talking about.
And he credits that entire rebound, the physical strength, the academic success, the whole career, not just to surviving the accident,
Right.
but to relying on these small, deliberate habits.
It's the trajectory. Built on those small wins day after day. That's what ultimately matters, not some giant leap.
Which brings us perfectly to that core concept, atomic. It's got kind of a double meaning, right?
Yeah, exactly. First, it means an extremely small amount, the smallest possible unit you can think of.
Like an atom.
Right. But second, it also refers to the single irreducible unit of a larger system. So these small habits, they aren't just minor tweaks. They are the fundamental building blocks, the components of really big, lasting outcomes.
Like you can't build a skyscraper without starting with the individual steel beams and rivets, the atomic components.
Precisely. You want the massive result, you got to focus on the smallest essential parts first.
Okay, let's unpack that core idea more. Section 1. The compounding power of marginal gains. This feels like the bedrock of the whole book.
It really is. The foundational philosophy here is what he calls the aggregation of marginal gains. And the key is, it's not about making one single dramatic change. Forget that.
Right.
It's about looking at everything you do, every aspect of your life or work, and finding a tiny way to improve each little piece by just 1%.
And we tend to dismiss that, don't we? Like 1%. What difference does that make?
Totally. It feels meaningless in the moment, but the math, when you look at it over time, it proves the aggregate impact is just, it's astonishing.
And the classic case study here, the one everyone points to, is Sir Dave Brailsford in British cycling.
Oh, yeah, it's the perfect example. When Brailsford took over in 2003, British cycling was basically a joke. Almost 100 years, they'd won just one Olympic gold medal, never won the Tour de France, ever.
Their reputation was so bad, the book says European bike manufacturers wouldn't even sell them bikes, afraid it would hurt their own brand image.
Can you imagine? That's how bad it was. So Brailsford comes in, and he completely ignores the big, flashy, goal-winning races. He focuses entirely on the system. He told his team, find 1% improvements everywhere.
And everywhere really meant everywhere, right? Not just the obvious stuff like bike tires.
Oh, way beyond that. Yes, they optimized the bike seats, the weight of the tires, all that, but they looked at things nobody else was even thinking about.
Like finding the perfect massage gel for muscle recovery?
Yep. Hiring a surgeon to teach the riders the absolute best way to wash their hands to avoid getting colds. Testing different fabrics for racing suits in a wind tunnel.
They even brought their own pillows and mattresses to hotels to make sure sleep was optimal.
Their own pillows. And they painted the inside of the team truck white.
Why white?
So they could spot even the tiniest speck of dust. Dust could get into the bike mechanics during maintenance and affect performance. That's how granular they got. Every single component was scrutinized for that 1% gain.
Okay, so what happened? What was the payoff for all this obsessive tiny tuning?
The payoff was jaw-dropping. In the 10 years after they started this, roughly 2007 to 2017, British riders just absolutely dominated the sport.
Didn't they win something like 178 world championships?
178 world championships, 66 Olympic and Paralympic gold medals, and British riders won the Tour de France 5 times in that period.
5 times. After never winning it once in over a century.
They went from being a laughingstock to total global dominance, purely through aggregating those tiny, marginal gains.
That really shows the power of compounding, doesn't it?
Mhm.
We get it with money, maybe, but applying it to habits or skills.
It works even more powerfully for habits and knowledge. The math is kind of startling. If you get just 1% better each day for 1 year...
You'd think, okay, 365% better. Simple math.
Nope. Because it compounds. You actually end up 37 times better by the end of the year. The curve just shoots upwards exponentially.
Wow, 37 times.
Conversely, though, getting 1% worse each day, that's also compounding. It leads to a decline so drastic you end up nearly back at zero.
So the trajectory, the path you're currently on, is basically everything.
Exactly. Which means, and this is a big takeaway, we need to stop obsessing so much over our current results, our weight right now, our bank balance today, and look really critically at our current trajectory.
Because those results are just lagging measures.
Precisely. Your net worth, your weight, your knowledge, the clutter in your house, they're just lagging measures of your habits. They're the consequence of what you repeat day in, day out.
You get what you repeat.
You get what you repeat. So you could be a millionaire right now, but if you consistently spend 5% more than you earn each month, your trajectory is actually terrible. That money's on a timer.
Right. And conversely, someone who's broke today but manages to save, say, even just $50 every single month consistently.
Their trajectory points towards financial freedom. They're building the right system. You are defined by the tiny choices you make today, deciding to read one page instead of scrolling, choosing the salad instead of the fries. Those tiny battles determine your future self years down the line.
Okay, intellectually, this all sounds great. Persist with 1% improvements.
Yeah.
But this is where people, myself included sometimes, tend to fall off. You start the plan, you put in the work for weeks, maybe months, and you see absolutely no visible change.
Ah, yes. The frustration point.
It's incredibly demotivating. You hit this wall and you think, this isn't working.
That wall has a name in the book, the plateau of latent potential. And learning how to navigate this plateau, well, that's often the difference between success and failure with habits.
Latent potential, meaning the results are building up, but they're hidden.
Exactly. We're conditioned, I think, to expect progress to be linear. You put in 10 hours of work, you expect 10 units of reward, right?
That makes sense.
But really powerful change is often delayed. You're doing the work, you're putting in the effort, but the results aren't immediately apparent. And that gap between expectation and reality creates what Clear calls the valley of disappointment.
The valley of disappointment. I like that phrase. It captures that feeling perfectly. So how do you get through it?
The ice cube analogy is perfect here. Think about an ice cube in a room. The temperature goes up from, say, 25 degrees to 26, then 27, 28, 29, 30, 31.
Still looks like an ice cube. Nothing's happening.
Right. You've put in energy, the temperature has increased, but visually, no change. You might think, my effort is wasted, but it wasn't.
The work was being stored somehow.
Exactly. Like compressing a spring, the potential for change is building up unseen, then suddenly at 32 degrees.
It melts. All the action happens at once.
All the visible action happens suddenly at that threshold. What looks like overnight success to the outside world, the breakout novel, the championship win, the dramatic weight loss, it's almost always just the moment that all that stored, unseen work finally breaks through the plateau of latent potential.
So the key to surviving the valley of disappointment is just keep going. Trust the process even when you can't see the results yet.
You have to trust the system, not the immediate result. You have to redefine success, not as hitting some milestone today, but simply as adhering to the process today. Stick to the system, show up, do the reps, and the outcomes are basically guaranteed to follow eventually. It requires faith in the compounding process.
Okay, that idea of trusting the system leads perfectly into the next big kind of counterintuitive shift in the book. Section 2, forget about goals, focus on systems instead.
Yeah, this one definitely goes against a lot of standard self-help advice, doesn't it? Set smart goals, etc.
Totally. So let's clarify first. What's the difference between a goal and a system in this context?
Okay, simple definitions. A goal is the result you want to achieve. I want to lose 20 pounds. I want to write a novel. I want to win the championship.
The outcome.
The outcome, exactly. A system is the process that leads to those results. So for the novelist, the system is their daily writing schedule, their research methods, how they handle editing, finding an agent, all that stuff.
Right. So Clear isn't saying goals are useless.
No, not useless. They're important for setting direction. They tell you where you want to go. But it's the system that actually drives progress. The system is what gets you there.
Okay. And he makes a strong case for why being too goal-focused can actually be detrimental. He points out 3 main problems. The first one is, winners and losers often have the same goal.
Exactly. Think about any sport. Every single team starts the season with the goal of winning the championship. Every candidate running for office has the goal of winning the election.
So the goal itself clearly isn't the thing that separates the winners from the losers, because everyone has it.
Precisely. If winners and losers share the same ambition, then the ambition itself cannot be the differentiating factor. What is different is the quality and the consistency of their systems, their training regimens, their campaign strategies, their daily practices.
Okay, that makes sense. Problem number 2. Achieving a goal is only a momentary change.
Ah, the classic messy room example. Your goal is to have a clean room. You spend an afternoon tidying up, you achieve the goal. Hooray! Room's clean. But if the underlying habits, the system that created the mess in the first place, haven't changed, well, what happens?
The clutter just starts creeping back in almost immediately.
Right. You've treated the symptom, the messy room, without addressing the root cause, the pack rat habits, the lack of an organizing system. So you end up perpetually chasing the same outcome over and over again instead of fixing the inputs.
To get permanent improvement, you have to solve the problem at the system level. Fix the inputs, and the outputs kind of take care of themselves.
That's the idea. It's often harder because systems feel less tangible, less exciting than a big goal, but it's where the lasting change happens.
And the third problem with goals, which might be the most insidious, goals restrict happiness.
Yeah, this is the goals first mentality. It sets up this internal narrative. Once I achieve X goal, lose the weight, get the promotion, buy the house, then I'll finally be happy.
Right. Happiness is always deferred, always waiting on the other side of the next milestone.
Which creates this constant either-or conflict in your head. Either you achieve the specific goal and get a brief hit of success-fueled happiness, or you fall short and feel like a failure, leading to disappointment. Life becomes this yo-yo between fleeting triumph and lingering dissatisfaction.
So what's the antidote?
A systems-first mentality. When you fall in love with the process itself, the daily act of writing, the consistent effort in the gym, the practice of mindful eating, then happiness isn't something you postpone. It's available anytime your system is running.
The joy is in the showing up, in the adherence, not just in crossing the finish line.
Exactly. You commit to the process and let the results take care of themselves. You're happy whenever you're executing your system, regardless of the immediate outcome.
Okay, so if we're shifting focus away from external results,
Yeah.
goals, and onto the processes systems, the book says we need to go even deeper, to the core level, identity change.
Right. Clear talks about 3 layers of behavior change. Think of them like concentric circles. The outermost layer is outcome change, changing your results, losing weight, publishing a book.
Okay.
The middle layer is process change, changing your habits and systems, implementing a new workout routine, organizing your desk.
Got it.
And the innermost, deepest layer is identity change, changing your beliefs about yourself, changing who you are.
And the argument is that the most effective, most lasting change happens from the inside out, starting with identity.
That's the core idea. Instead of focusing primarily on what you want to achieve, the outcome, you focus on who you wish to become, the identity.
So instead of I want to run a marathon outcome, it's I want to be a runner identity.
Exactly. Or instead of I want to write a book, it's I want to be a writer. Because true, sustainable behavior change is identity change. When you change your self-image, your behaviors start to align with that new identity almost automatically.
How does that work in practice? He talks about actions being like votes.
Yeah, I love that metaphor. Every action you take is essentially a vote casting a ballot for the type of person you wish to become.
So if I go to the gym even when I don't feel like it,
That's one vote for I am someone who doesn't miss workouts. If you choose water over soda, that's a vote for I am a healthy person. If you write one sentence, that's a vote for I am a writer.
even tiny actions count as votes.
Especially the tiny actions, because they build up evidence. Each small win reinforces the desired identity. Over time, as the votes accumulate, you start to build a compelling body of evidence for your new self-image.
And this creates a kind of positive feedback loop.
Absolutely. The more evidence you gather, the more pride you take in that identity. I am a runner. And the more pride you have, the more motivated you become to maintain the habits associated with that identity.
Like someone who really internalizes I am a tidy person. They don't decide to clean up. It's just part of who they are. The habit becomes almost effortless because it aligns with their self-perception.
Precisely. The habits become non-negotiable because they're not just things you do. They're reflections of who you are. You maintain the habit not just for the result, but because it reaffirms your identity. That's the deepest level of motivation.
All right, let's get into the real nuts and bolts then. The practical operating instructions. The 4 laws of behavior change. This starts with understanding the underlying structure of every habit, right? The habit loop.
Correct. This is the foundation. Clear breaks down every habit into 4 simple steps that operate as an endless feedback loop. Cue, craving, response, and reward.
Cue, craving, response, reward.
Okay. The first 2 steps, cue and craving, make up what he calls the problem phase. This is where your brain recognizes that something needs to change or be addressed.
So the cue is the trigger, the thing that kicks it all off.
Exactly. It's the bit of information that predicts a reward. It tells your brain, hey, pay attention, something good might happen if you act. In ancient times, cues were obvious, the sight of berries, the sound of running water.
And now?
Now they're often more subtle, a notification buzz on your phone, the smell of coffee brewing, seeing the TV remote on the couch, even just the time of day.
And a key point here is that the habit can start even if you're not consciously aware of the cue, right?
Absolutely critical. Our conscious mind is slow and takes effort, so our brain outsources routine behaviors to the non-conscious mind to save energy. Think about automatically covering your mouth when you yawn or laugh, or locking the door when you leave the house. You often do it without even registering the specific cue that prompted it.
So the first step in changing habits is dragging those non-conscious cues out into the open, becoming aware of them.
Precisely. Then, after the cue, comes the craving.
This is the motivation part, the engine.
It's the motivational force behind every habit. It's the wanting of the reward, the desire to change your internal state. And importantly, the craving isn't usually for the habit itself.
What do you mean?
Well, you don't necessarily crave smoking a cigarette. You crave the feeling of relief from stress or nicotine withdrawal that you associate with the cigarette. You don't crave turning on the TV. You crave relief from boredom or the passive entertainment it provides. The craving is for the change in state the habit delivers.
Ah, okay. So cue and craving are the problem phase. Then comes the solution phase.
Right. Which consists of the response and the reward. The response is the actual habit itself, the action you take, or the thought you have.
Like smoking the cigarette, scrolling through social media, or meditating for a minute.
Exactly. And whether you actually perform the response depends on a few things. How motivated you are, driven by the craving, how much friction is involved, is it easy or hard, and your actual ability to do it. If any of those are lacking, the habit loop breaks down.
And finally, the reward, the payoff.
The end goal of every habit. Rewards do 2 things. First, they satisfy the craving. The cigarette delivers the nicotine hit, the food delivers energy and satisfies hunger. Second, and crucially, rewards teach your brain which actions are worth remembering and repeating in the future.
That felt good, solved my problem. Let's file that away for next time.
Exactly. If a behavior isn't rewarding, you have no reason to repeat it. So the goal is to understand this loop cue, craving, response, reward, and then manipulate each step to build good habits and break bad ones.
Okay, let's start with the first manipulation. The first law, Make it obvious. Since the cue triggers everything, we need to make the cues for good habits impossible to miss.
And conversely, make the cues for bad habits invisible. But it starts with awareness, making the unconscious conscious. There's a great Carl Jung quote: "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate."
Love that. So how do we increase awareness of our current, often unconscious habits?
The book suggests a simple exercise called the habit scorecard. You literally just list out your daily habits: waking up, checking phone, brushing teeth, making coffee, commuting, etc.
And then you score them?
Yeah, just mark each one as positive, plus, negative, or neutral based on whether it helps you become the person you want to be. No judgment, just awareness. Oh, interesting. I didn't realize I checked my phone before getting out of bed.
Okay, that brings awareness. But what about making those non-conscious actions really conscious in the moment?
For that, Clear Bar is a technique from Japanese railways called pointing and calling.
Pointing and calling. What's that?
It's a safety system. Railway operators are required to physically point at important signals and call out their status loud. Signal is green. Speed is 75 kilometers per hour.
Why?
Because it forces an action that is normally automatic and non-conscious into the conscious realm. By verbalizing and gesturing, they have to actually notice the signal instead of just relying on habit. It dramatically reduces errors.
So we can apply this to our own habits.
Absolutely. Especially bad habits. When you find yourself reaching for that cookie or opening social media for the 10th time, you point at it, mentally or physically, and say the action and its consequence out loud.
Like, I am about to eat this cookie. Eating this cookie will add sugar and calories I don't need and hinder my weight loss goal.
Exactly. Hearing it makes the automatic script conscious. It gives you that crucial pause, that moment of awareness where you can choose a different path. It makes the invisible cue visible and verbal.
Okay, that's for awareness and interrupting bad habits. How do we make the cues for good habits obvious?
Two main strategies here: implementation intentions and habit stacking.
Implementation intentions. That sounds fancy.
It just means being super specific about when and where you're going to perform your new habit. It removes all the ambiguity that lets us wiggle out of things.
So not just, I'll exercise more.
No way. The formula is, I will behavior at time and location. So it becomes, I will do 20 push-ups at 7 a.m. in my living room, or I will meditate for 1 minute at 6:30 a.m. on the kitchen chair.
That specificity links the new habit to a concrete time and place, making the cue much clearer.
Precisely. Studies show that people who use implementation intentions are significantly more likely to follow through, and you can boost this even further with habit stacking.
Which is linking a new habit to one you already do.
Exactly. The formula is, after current habit, I will new habit. The key is leveraging an existing ingrained habit as the cue for the new one.
So if I already make coffee every morning without fail,
That's your anchor. After I pour my morning cup of coffee, I will text one encouraging message to a friend. Or after I take off my work shoes, I will immediately change into my workout clothes.
and a book stresses that the current habit needs to be really specific, right? Not just after work.
Yes, super important. After work is too vague. When does work really end? Is it when you leave the building, when you close your laptop, when you walk in the door? You need a precise moment: after I close my laptop for the day, or after I put my keys on the hook. The cue needs to be unambiguous.
This naturally leads into environment design, making cues obvious in our physical space.
Huge factor. Our vision is our most dominant sense, apparently. Half the brain's resources are used on site. So what we see shapes what we do. We need to architect our environment to make good cues visible and bad cues invisible.
Simple examples.
If you want to remember to take your medication, put the pill bottle right next to the bathroom faucet where you'll see it when you brush your teeth. Want to practice guitar more? Don't hide it in the case in the closet. Put it on a stand in the middle of your living room.
Make the desired action the path of least resistance visually.
Exactly. Make it obvious. The opposite is also true. Make bad habit cues invisible. If you eat too many cookies, get them out of the house. If you waste time on video games, unplug the console and put it in a closet after each use. Increase the friction for the bad, decrease it for the good.
There's that funny example from Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam.
Oh, the urinal fly. Classic nudge theory. They etched a tiny image of a fly near the drain in the men's room urinals.
And what happened?
Apparently, men subconsciously aim at targets. It gave them something obvious to focus on, significantly reduced spillage, and cut bathroom cleaning costs by 8%. A tiny visual cue changed behavior.
That's amazing. It highlights how much our context influences us.
Which brings up the point that context is the cue. Habits become strongly associated not just with a single trigger, but with the entire environment or context in which they occur.
This is why it's hard to say work from your couch if that's where you usually relax and watch TV.
Exactly. Your brain has associated couch with relaxation mode, not focus mode. This leads to the one space, one use mantra. Try to dedicate specific locations for specific activities. Bed is for sleeping, desk is for working, kitchen table is for eating.
It helps avoid those competing cues. And this is why changing habits can actually be easier when you're in a new environment, like on vacation or after moving.
Definitely. You escape the old triggers. You're not fighting ingrained environmental cues. If you can't change your environment entirely, try rearranging a room or designating a specific corner or chair solely for your new habit. Create a fresh context.
Okay, so to recap the first law, make the cues for good habits obvious, visible, specific, and context-bound. And do the opposite for bad habits, make their cues invisible.
That's the essence of it. You got to see it to do it or not see it to avoid it.
Right. Law number 2, once the cue is obvious, we need to make it attractive. How do we make ourselves want to do the good habits?
This dives into our brain chemistry, specifically the role of dopamine. We often think of dopamine as the pleasure chemical, the reward we get after doing something.
Yeah, the liking part.
But research shows dopamine is released much more significantly during the anticipation of pleasure. It's the wanting or the craving chemical. That spike of dopamine before you eat the chocolate or check your notifications is what actually drives you to take the action.
So the anticipation is often more powerful than the reward itself.
Neurologically speaking, yes. The brain regions associated with wanting and craving are much larger and more extensive than the regions associated with actual liking or pleasure. This explains why the desire, the daydream, the chase can often feel more intense than the eventual outcome. The craving is the engine.
And modern life is kind of built to hijack this system, isn't it? With what Claire calls supernormal stimuli.
Absolutely. These are exaggerated versions of reality, dialed up to 11 to maximize our dopamine response and trigger intense cravings.
Like junk food.
Perfect example. Food scientists engineer junk food to have dynamic contrast, salty and sweet, crunchy and creamy. It hits multiple sensory buttons simultaneously, creating an experience far more stimulating than, say, an apple or a handful of almonds. Natural foods seem bland in comparison.
And social media.
Same principle. It offers exaggerated social validation, likes, comments, constant novelty, bright colors, immediate feedback loops, all designed to be far more stimulating and addictive than normal everyday social interactions. These supernormal stimuli exploit our ancient brain wiring, making delayed reward habits feel boring.
Okay, so knowing this, how do we make our good, often less immediately stimulating habits more attractive?
One powerful technique is temptation bundling. This is where you link an action you want to do with an action you need to do.
Making the fun thing conditional on doing the necessary thing.
Exactly. You bundle the temptation with the habit. The example from the book is Ronan Byrne, an engineering student in Dublin. He enjoyed watching Netflix, but knew he needed to exercise more.
So what do you do?
He hacked a stationary bike, he connected it to his laptop, and wrote some code so that Netflix would only play if he was cycling at a certain minimum speed.
Brilliant.
If he slowed down, Netflix paused. So the immediate reward he wanted, watching his show, became directly coupled with the habit he needed to do, exercising. He made exercise the gateway to Netflix.
We can apply this more generally, right? The formula?
Yeah, you can even stack it with existing habits. The full formula looks like 1. After current habit, I will habit I need. 2. After habit I need, I will habit I want.
Okay, give me an example.
After I get back from my run, current habit, I will foam roll for 10 minutes. Habit I need. After I finish foam rolling, habit I need, I will check my Instagram feed for 5 minutes. Habit I want. You sandwich the needed habit between an existing one and a desired one.
Making the need habit more attractive because it leads directly to the want habit.
Precisely. Another huge factor in making habits attractive is leveraging social norms. We are fundamentally social creatures, hardwired to fit in.
We imitate the people around us.
Deeply. Claire says we tend to imitate the habits of 3 main groups: the close, family, friends; the many, the tribe, the culture; and the powerful, those with status and prestige.
So if we want to adopt a habit, we should surround ourselves with people for whom that habit is normal.
It's one of the most effective strategies. Join a running club if you want to run. Join a book club if you want to read more. Immerse yourself in a culture where your desired behavior is the standard operating procedure. The behavior becomes attractive because it helps you belong.
There's that fascinating chimpanzee study you mentioned earlier.
Right, where a chimp learned a clearly superior way to crack nuts but then abandoned it when it joined a new group that used a less efficient method, just to fit in.
Wow. The desire to belong can literally override rational optimization.
It's incredibly powerful, and we also copy the powerful, the successful, the respected. We adopt their strategies, their dress sense, their habits, because we associate those behaviors with achieving status and success ourselves. If a behavior promises respect, approval, or admiration, it becomes more attractive.
So find role models whose habits you admire, and find a tribe where your desired habits are the norm.
That's a huge part of making habits attractive. Finally, for breaking bad habits, we can use reframing. Reframing the craving.
Changing how we think about the habit.
Exactly. It's about changing the association you have with the cue. Alan Carr's famous easy way to stop smoking method is built entirely on this.
He doesn't focus on willpower, does he?
Not at all. He systematically helps smokers reframe every perceived benefit of smoking. You think smoking relieves stress? No, it actually destroys your nerves. Creating the stress it then partially relieves. You think it helps you concentrate? No, the withdrawal distracts you.
So you change the narrative around the craving. Instead of seeing the cue, stress, and thinking cigarette relief, you learn to think cigarette poison, nerve damage, disease.
By changing the interpretation, you change the feeling. The craving itself becomes less attractive, even repulsive. You're not fighting the urge, you're dissolving it by changing what it means to you. Associate the bad habit with a negative feeling, and it loses its appeal.
Okay, laws 1 and 2 are about the cue and the craving, making it obvious and attractive. Now we move to the actual execution. The third law. Make it easy.
This one is super practical. It taps into a fundamental aspect of human and really all animal nature, the law of least effort.
We're inherently lazy.
Well, maybe efficient is a kinder word. Our brains are wired to conserve energy. Given two similar options, we will naturally gravitate towards the one that requires the least amount of work, the least friction.
The path of least resistance.
Always. He uses the example of agricultural spread throughout history. Why did farming spread so much faster east-west across Eurasia compared to north-south across the Americas?
Climate consistency.
Exactly. Moving east or west, the climate, daylight hours, and seasons remained relatively similar, so the same package of crops and farming techniques worked with minimal adaptation, low friction.
Whereas moving north or south meant constantly encountering different climates, rainfall patterns, soil types, requiring constant, effortful adaptation. High friction.
Right. It shows this principle operates on a massive scale. We avoid friction. Therefore, if we want to build good habits, the key is to reduce friction associated with them as much as possible.
Make the good habit the easiest option.
And conversely, increase the friction for bad habits. Make them harder to do. It's all about engineering your environment and your routines to make the desired path the easiest one to take.
So, choosing a gym that's on your direct commute home, even if it's not the absolute fanciest gym.
Perfect example. Convenience trumps quality often. The habit needs to fit seamlessly into the existing flow of your life. The less friction between you and the starting line, the more likely you are to begin.
This reminds me of the concept of addition by subtraction in manufacturing, like Japanese companies optimizing workflows.
Yes, they achieved more by doing less, by eliminating wasted effort, simplifying steps, removing obstacles. Modern successful services do the same thing. Why is Uber so popular? It removes the friction of hailing a cab, handling cash, figuring out the route.
Texting versus calling. Online shopping versus going to the store. They all reduce friction.
We should apply that same relentless simplification to our own desired habits. How can I make starting this habit absolutely effortless?
One way is priming the environment, setting things up in advance.
Exactly. Preparing your environment today to make your desired actions tomorrow easier. It's about reducing the friction of starting.
Like the example of Oswald Knuckles and his resetting the room strategy.
Yeah, I love that one. When he finishes watching TV for the night, he doesn't just turn it off. He puts the remote back in its specific place, folds the blanket, arranges the couch cushions. He resets the environment for the next time he'll use it.
So the next evening, when he wants to relax, there's zero friction. The space is ready and inviting.
It makes the spurt effortless. We can do this everywhere.
Mhm.
Lay out your workout clothes and shoes the night before. Chop vegetables for tomorrow's healthy lunch tonight. Put the book you intend to read on your pillow.
Get everything ready so when the moment comes, you just have to do the thing, not prepared to do the thing.
Preparation is often where habits die. But the most powerful technique for making habits easy, especially new ones, is the 2-minute rule.
Okay, what's the 2-minute rule?
Simple. When you start a new habit, it should take less than 2 minutes to do.
Less than 2 minutes. That seems ridiculously small.
That's the point. It's not about achieving the ultimate goal in 2 minutes. It's about mastering the art of showing up. It's about making the start of the habit so easy that you can't say no.
So read every day becomes read one page.
Exactly. Do 30 minutes of yoga becomes take out my yoga mat. Study for class becomes open my notes. Run 3 miles becomes put on my running shoes.
It's like a ritualized starting point.
It is. It makes the very first step mindless and automatic. Once you've put on the running shoes or open the book, it's much easier to continue for longer. But the rule ensures you overcome that initial inertia, that friction of starting.
And Claire emphasizes that these first 2 minutes are often decisive moments, right?
Hugely important. Our days are filled with choices, but certain small choices act as forks in the road, setting the trajectory for the next chunk of time.
Like when you get home from work, the choice is change into workout clothes, takes less than 2 minutes, or collapse on the couch, also takes less than 2 minutes.
Right. But that tiny 2-minute decision dictates the entire rest of your evening. One path leads to exercise and energy, the other leads to passive TV watching. The 2-minute rule is about winning that decisive moment by making the good path ridiculously easy to start.
Master the art of showing up, even if it's just for 2 minutes. It reaffirms the identity, cast the vote.
And often, you'll find yourself doing more once you've started anyway. But even if you only do the 2 minutes, you've kept the habit alive and reinforced your commitment. You didn't break the chain.
Okay, we've made it obvious, attractive, and easy. Now the final piece, the fourth law. Make it satisfying. This is what makes us repeat the habit, right?
Absolutely. This closes the habit loop and ensures it runs again. It's based on what Clear calls the cardinal rule of behavior change. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided.
Seems straightforward. We seek pleasure, avoid pain.
It is straightforward, but there's a catch in modern life due to an evolutionary mismatch. Our brains evolved over hundreds of thousands of years in what's called an immediate return environment.
Meaning, rewards for actions were usually quick. Find berries, eat berries, see predator, run away. The feedback was instant.
Exactly. Survival depended on prioritizing immediate payoffs. But modern society is largely a delayed return environment.
Like working hard at your job today for a paycheck in 2 weeks or a promotion next year, or exercising today for better health years down the road.
Right. The rewards for many good habits are delayed. Worse, good habits often involve immediate effort or discomfort. Going to the gym, resisting cravings. Bad habits, on the other hand,
They often offer immediate pleasure or relief. Eating junk food, scrolling social media, procrastinating. The payoff is instant.
So our ancient brain wiring, which prioritizes immediate gratification, gets easily hijacked by bad habits, while struggling to stick with good habits whose rewards are far off in the future.
So how do we overcome this mismatch? How do we make good delayed return habits satisfying now?
We have to hack the system. We need to find ways of adding immediate pleasure or satisfaction to our long-term habits. We need to give our brain a little win right now for doing the right thing.
Create an immediate reward signal.
Exactly. The Safeguard Sut example from Karachi, Pakistan in the book is perfect. Health officials were struggling to get people to wash their hands consistently, even though people knew it was important for health.
So knowledge wasn't the barrier.
No, it was consistency. The habit wasn't satisfying. So what did the company Procter & Gamble do? They didn't just push education, they reformulated Safeguard soap to make it more premium.
Also,
It lathered better, it smelled great, it made the simple act of washing hands a slightly more pleasurable, more satisfying sensory experience in the moment.
and that little bit of immediate satisfaction was enough.
It was enough. Hand washing rates skyrocketed, leading to significant improvements in community health. Not because people suddenly cared more about germs, but because the experience of the habit became immediately satisfying.
So we need to find ways to give ourselves those immediate, satisfying rewards for our good habits.
Yes, and the key is that the reward should reinforce the habit and the desired identity. Short-term, visible rewards work well.
Like the couple saving for a trip.
Yeah, they wanted to eat out less. So they set up a savings account specifically labeled Trip to Europe. Every time they successfully cooked at home instead of ordering takeout, they immediately transferred $50 into that account.
So they got an instant visual reward, seeing the travel fund grow, which made the sacrifice of not eating out immediately satisfying.
And critically, the reward aligned with their long-term goal and identity, being financially savvy travelers. You have to be careful here. Rewarding yourself for going to the gym with a giant ice cream sundae.
Kind of sends a mixed message, right? Casts conflicting votes for your identity.
Exactly. The reward should support the identity you're trying to build. Reward a workout with a massage, a healthy smoothie, new workout gear, or simply tracking your progress, something that aligns with being a fit, healthy person.
Which brings us to habit tracking. That seems like a built-in way to make habits satisfying.
It absolutely is. Marking an X on a calendar, filling in a spreadsheet, using a habit tracking app. It provides immediate visual evidence of your progress.
That visual proof feels good. It shows you're showing up, casting those votes.
And it's inherently motivating because of the don't break the chain effect. Once you have a streak going, you really don't want to see that empty box. It leverages our desire for completion and consistency. It makes not doing the habit feel unsatisfying.
But what happens when you inevitably do miss a day? The chain breaks, you feel like a failure.
This is crucial, the never miss twice rule. Perfection is impossible. Everyone slips up. Missing one day is just an anomaly, an accident.
But missing 2 days.
Missing 2 days in a row is the start of a new negative habit. The key isn't to never fail, it's to get back on track as quickly as possible. Even if you only do a tiny version of the habit the next day, like one push-up or reading one paragraph, do something.
Because it reaffirms the identity. I'm the type of person who doesn't miss twice.
Exactly. It keeps the momentum going, maintains the identity, and prevents one slip-up from derailing everything. Doing something is infinitely better than doing nothing when you're trying to recover from a missed day.
Okay, so that's making good habits satisfying. What about the inversion for bad habits? Make it unsatisfying.
Right. Just like we want immediate rewards for good habits, we need immediate consequences for bad habits. The problem is the consequences of most bad habits, like smoking or eating poorly, are delayed. The pleasure is now, the pain is later.
So we need to introduce an immediate cost.
And one of the most powerful costs for humans is social cost. We care deeply about what others think of us, so using an accountability partner or a habit contract can be incredibly effective.
Telling someone else your goal and having them check in.
Yes, or even better, creating a formal contract with real stakes. The example of Brian Harris in the book is extreme but illustrative. He wanted to track his food intake and weight consistently but kept failing.
So we made a contract.
With whom? With his wife and his personal trainer. He signed a contract stipulating specific immediate punishments if he failed to log his food or weight on any given day.
What were the punishments?
2 things. First, a monetary fine, $200 payable immediately to his trainer. Second, and probably more motivating for him, public humiliation. He would have to dress up in formal business attire, including a suit and tie, for work every single day for the rest of the quarter.
Wow. That's a serious, immediate, and socially painful consequence.
Exactly. The thought of facing that immediate, tangible, and embarrassing cost was enough to make skipping his logging habit deeply unsatisfying. It worked. Finding a way to introduce an immediate, unpleasant consequence, whether financial, social, or just inconvenient, makes bad habits much less appealing in the moment.
All right, we've covered the 4 laws, which is the core system. But the book goes further into achieving real mastery. Let's touch on that in this last section, starting with the role of genes and opportunity.
Right. It's important to acknowledge biology. Our genes don't lock us into a fixed destiny, but they do influence our natural inclinations and abilities. They determine our areas of opportunity.
So nature versus nurture. Genes matter, but they aren't everything.
Exactly. Look at elite athletes. Michael Phelps, the swimmer, long torso, short legs, huge wingspan, large feet, built like a human boat. Hicham Garouge, the middle distance runner, average height, lightweight, incredibly efficient cardiovascular system.
Both Olympic champions, but with almost opposite physical builds, perfectly suited to their respective sports.
Precisely. They succeeded partly because their ambitions align with their genetic predispositions. The key takeaway isn't genes or destiny, but rather work hard on the things that come easier to you. Direct your efforts towards areas where you have a natural advantage or inclination.
Play a game where the odds are in your favor.
Basically, yes. Trying to build habits in areas that go strongly against your inherent personality or talents is like swimming upstream. It requires way more effort and willpower.
He mentions the big 5 personality traits: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, neuroticism, which have a strong genetic component.
Right. If you're naturally high in conscientiousness, you'll likely find it easier and more satisfying to build habits around planning, organization, and routines. If you're high in extroversion, habits involving social interaction might be more appealing. Align your habits with your nature to make them more satisfying.
Okay, so play to your strengths.
Yeah.
But how do you maintain motivation over the long haul? even in areas where you have some aptitude. That's where the Goldilocks rule comes in.
Yes, this is about managing difficulty. Motivation naturally peaks when we're working on tasks that are right on the edge of our current abilities. Not too hard, not too easy, but just right.
Like Goldilocks and the porridge.
Exactly. Psychologists call this the point of optimal arousal or flow state, related to the Yerkes-Dodson law. If a task is too easy, we get bored and lose interest. If it's too hard, we get overwhelmed, frustrated, and give up.
We need that sweet spot of manageable challenge.
Right. It keeps us engaged. Think about playing a game. Playing against someone much worse than you is boring. Playing against someone vastly better is demoralizing. Playing against someone just slightly better, that's engaging, motivating. You feel challenged but capable of winning if you stretch yourself.
Steve Martin's comedy career is used as an example here.
Yeah, it's a great illustration. He didn't become a superstar overnight. He spent maybe 15 years gradually honing his complex stage act. Each year, he'd only add or significantly change about 1 or 2 minutes of material.
Just enough new stuff to keep it interesting for him and the audience, but built on a foundation of reliable laughs.
Exactly. He kept the challenge level just right, balancing the familiar with the novel, pushing his boundaries incrementally. That's how you sustain effort over the long term without burning out or getting bored.
And this highlights a crucial point. The greatest threat to long-term success isn't usually failure. It's boredom.
So true. Anyone can get motivated for a week or two when something is new and exciting. But mastery requires falling in love with the process, even when it becomes routine, even when it's boring.
Professionals stick to the schedule. Amateurs let life get in the way.
Professionals show up even when the mood isn't right. They embrace the boredom of practice because they trust the system and the compounding results. You have to be willing to put in the reps long after the novelty is worn off.
But once habits do become automatic, almost boring, there's another danger, isn't there? Complacency.
Yes. When a habit becomes truly non-conscious, we stop paying close attention. We go on autopilot. And while that's efficient, it means we become less sensitive to feedback and can start making small errors or letting performance slightly decline without noticing.
So habits are necessary, but not sufficient for mastery. We need reflection and review.
Exactly. We need periodic systems to check in, measure progress, and identify areas for refinement, even in our automatic habits. This prevents that slow drift into mediocrity.
The example used is Coach Pat Riley with the Showtime Lakers.
Right. Even with superstars like Magic Johnson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Riley implemented a system called CBE, Career Best Effort.
What did that track?
It broke down each player's performance into key statistical components: points, rebounds, assists, steals, turnovers, etc. It calculated a baseline CBE number representing their peak potential and then tracked their current performance against it.
And the goal was constant improvement.
Each player was expected to improve their CBE score by at least 1% over the course of the season. It forced even the best players in the world to consciously reflect on their game, identify tiny areas for improvement, and avoid complacency. It kept them focused on marginal gains even after reaching the top.
So, build the habits until they're automatic, but then build in regular reflection to keep sharp and continue improving.
That's the path to mastery. One final point on maintaining progress long-term is managing your identity.
We talked about building identity through votes, but there's a danger too.
Yes, the danger of tying your identity too tightly to a specific role or achievement. I am the CEO. I am a concert pianist. I am a Navy SEAL.
What's wrong with that? Isn't that strong identity helpful?
It is, until that role inevitably changes or ends. If your entire sense of self is wrapped up in being the quarterback, what happens when you graduate or get injured? You face a massive identity crisis.
So the key is to define your identity more flexibly, around values or characteristics, not just roles.
Exactly. Instead of I'm a soldier, maybe it's I'm the type of person who is disciplined, resilient, and excels in high-pressure situations. Instead of I'm a doctor, maybe I'm the type of person who is dedicated to helping others and constantly learning.
That kind of identity is adaptable. It can survive changes in career, status, or circumstance.
Right. You become more like water, maintaining your essential qualities while being able to flow around obstacles and adapt to different containers. It protects your sense of self when external circumstances shift, allowing you to keep applying your core habit and values in new ways.
Wow. Okay, that was a really comprehensive deep dive into atomic habits. Let's try to wrap it up. The fundamental shift, it seems, is moving away from obsessing over big goals and outcomes.
and focusing instead on building reliable systems and cultivating a desired identity through small, consistent actions, trusting that compounding effect of 1% marginal gains.
And the practical framework for doing that is the 4 laws of behavior change. We need to make the cues for good habits obvious.
Make the habits themselves attractive.
Make the action ridiculously easy, especially to start.
And make the completion immediately satisfying. And invert those for bad habits: invisible, unattractive, difficult, unsatisfying.
It really feels like an engineering blueprint for behavior, for designing a life where good habits feel almost inevitable and bad habits become practically impossible.
It really does. And remembering that core driver, desire initiates the action, but pleasure or satisfaction sustains it. The wanting gets you started. The liking keeps you going. It's an emotional engine, not just a logical one.
So, as a final thought for everyone listening, remember that the source of all progress, all change, is that fundamental desire to change your state. Look at your own life right now, not just your current results, but your current trajectory.
Are the tiny atomic choices you're making consistently today casting the right votes? Are they building the evidence for the identity you truly wish to claim 5, 10 years down the road?
Something to definitely reflect on. Choose those tiny habits wisely.